All right, everybody. I am here with my friend Tom. He is a longtime resident of the Buena Park area. He has been in multiple businesses in the area. He's got a lot to say about business, so I thought I'd have him on today. And there's some really impressive things that you want to know about Tom. He really impresses me. I've only known him for probably about 6 months now, but some of the things he's shared with me are pretty awesome. So, Tom, first of all, what's your last name?
Duhansky.
Duhansky, Tom Duhansky, fantastic. Tom, what would you say to some of the younger generation that is out there?
Okay, I've been through a lot of phases in life, and then younger people are just starting out and trying to get ahead, and getting ahead is a big part of life. It is
Sure.
the biggest challenge in this economy, as you know, with the robotizing of industry and
Yeah,
and all the other
AI,
replacing jobs.
right.
So
Cryptocurrency.
my best advice to the younger generation is to just keep learning, because you're going to have to probably diversify yourself at some point in your life, and hopefully you have the energy and the qualifications to do that at that time.
Right. Now, back in when you were in business, it was what, 70s, 80s, around that time. What were some of the skill sets that people needed at that time to be in business or qualify for the jobs that were out there?
Back in the 70s, the economy was still kicking along pretty good. I think that there were still more manual type labor jobs available for unskilled people, but those kind of things have been drying up. So you have to be a technical person nowadays to get somewhere.
Right, a lot of stuff.
In the world. I mean, you have to know at least some programming knowledge, just basic anyways, just for almost anything, it seems. And you don't have to be an IT expert, but you got to at least have computer functioning.
Some knowledge.
And so I would say definitely include that in junior college. Get that stuff fast before you commit to a job and you get stuck, and you get to a certain point in life where you're like 50 years old and you're thinking, am I stuck here forever because this is all I really know. I've seen this happen even with my son. They kicked him loose after 38 years.
Wow.
But he found something else to fall back on. But
And he was in, what industry was he in?
IT.
IT.
So again, it's
so even though he was in IT, still after 38 years, you got to keep current. You got to keep current. Things change every 3 days nowadays.
Programming and you've got the competition from the young people who work for less, obviously.
Right.
And they're pretty sharp.
Very sharp. Now there's social media experts. There's marketing experts. Marketing is a completely different thing. That is, back in the 40s, you had the different type of ways of marketing, where you had kind of like that Manhattan type of marketing format. And now, even in the 60s and 70s, 80s, all the way up into the 90s, you had a more advertising on television. Even that is dying out. So businesses change in that respect as far as the way we advertise nowadays. So the experts that were experts in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, not so much today, right? They need a new skill set, a new computer, right? Like you said, a new software, knowing technology kind of basis.
Right, and social skills. I mean, it's really important. I hear things from businessmen that they say, some of the kids that come out of high school, they're just so raw. They don't have the social talents that they need. And so I would say take some speech classes, learn how to communicate, because that might get you farther sometimes than just a skill set.
It's a lost art, right? Most people are talking on the computer, talking through Facebook, talking through Instagram, in back of a computer. Not very many people talking like me and you are doing today, one-on-one, face-to-face. It's a lost art.
Yeah, and so I mean that skill set has always been needed in any type of industry. And so if you've got that behind you, you got one leg up, so to speak.
Fantastic. And what types of businesses did you have during your?
Well, I had mom and pop type business. I had a bike store. I had a barber shop. We had some rentals and stuff. But what's interesting is that most of the economic migrants, is what basically refugees are, that want to come to America from whatever country. They just want a place to come where they can start over. And lots of them set up mom and pop businesses. You see just complete repetition of that type of thing. If you go to certain areas like Long Beach, where it's all Cambodian and Vietnamese, and it's just one business after another that's the same, because they all want to do the same thing.
Hugely, and some of them hugely successful. Right?
Some of them are successful, but others, I mean, they can't really compete, because it's just everybody's doing the same thing, and there's only so much widgets that people can buy.
Right.
You know, and you got China pumping out all these widgets, and Malaysia and Vietnam and all these factory countries that are pumping out these widgets to the world, but there can only be so many of them sold at any one time in any one space.
Right.
And so I feel sorry in a way for these migrants that don't have any real fluidity in their labor skills, and they just want to spend, you know, all their time and all their energy on that one American dream of having your own business, because, you know, they're going to be tough in it. I mean, it's tough.
It's going to take work. People think that
I mean, it was tough when I was in it, and that we're talking, you know, what, 50-hour weeks, and these people probably spend more than that in their little bakeries and their little
7 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And they're just waiting for somebody to come in and buy their little widget or their little service, and
you really have to like stick out some way. So that's when it gets back to the social media. That's when it gets back to advertising. That's where it gets back to being different, and just being outside of the box, thinking outside of the box. You know, you had to work hard back then. You still have to work hard today. But that being said, if you do it right, you still have the advantage. Some say we're living in the best time that we've ever lived in the best time in history, because of the fact of social media. There are not so many gatekeepers. Would you agree with that?
Well, yes, but any advantage that you get, like a business advantage to social media or whatever, can be offset by just the cost of living. I mean, it seems that I know they say we're only like at about a 3.5–4% inflationary rate, but the rents don't reflect that. I mean, especially in places like California or New York.
Right.
These poor people come here and
can't afford the rent.
They can't even afford an apartment in Orange County.
You got like 5 people living in one apartment, 3 families living in a home. I know on my block, that's a big situation there. On my block, there's every other house, there's 5 families living in a house. So it's hard to survive with the cost of living.
It's hard to survive with the cost of living, and I don't really see that changing much, because the population is somewhat shifting, especially here on the West Coast. It seems like those that are coming are the unskilled laborers, unfortunately.
Right.
And I'm not picking out any particular cultural background. I'm just saying worldwide, there's hundreds of millions of people that would just love their American dream to come to America or even Europe and start over.
Right.
But that's starting over takes capital, and they don't have it, and they maybe have not got the skill set to do that either. So
that's the interesting paradox, that even though we are in a high-tech, high AI type of world that we're living in right now, there's still a need for skilled labor out there. There's still a need for craftsmen. I think it's interesting as people start to get those things that we talked about earlier, where they get computer skills, they get software engineering backgrounds, they become experts in marketing. There becomes this vacuum. of skilled labor, you
Right.
know, carpenters, construction, manual labor, plumbers, people that can use a torch. I mean, it's something as simple as using a torch
Right.
would be simple to most people. Using a wrench would be simple to most people. But as we move forward into a computerized, you know, we are beyond move forward. We're into an AI computerized generation here.
Assembly, factory
We
type
don't have the skill set
environment.
to do the basic stuff,
Right.
even on our homes.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of an interesting thing, yeah, and
interesting thing.
there's some separation there, but then I have talked to businessmen that work in some factories, and actually, believe it or not, Southern California is still one of the meccas of industrial output.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, we just don't see it. It's not these huge companies like there was back in the day when we had aerospace and you had
Right.
McDonnell Douglas and all these huge companies where people were turning out product, airplane,
Boeing, Edwards,
you know,
Air Force
aerospace
Base,
product,
things like that.
and now it's at a smaller level. But these companies are really hurting for people that can actually run the machinery, because robots can't run everything. I mean, somebody has to program the robot and watch it. And somebody has to fix it. You know, there's an assembly line, and it still has to work all together. So I've talked to people that say that they really need skilled machinists.
They still need the human touch.
Yeah, they need
interesting.
skilled machinists. So hopefully some of the people that will be let in to the country will be getting the B-1B visas based on their skill set, and that would help.
Interesting.
And they would be able then at a point to actually bring productivity in, set up their own businesses and hire more people, you know, entrepreneurs. But you need that skill set to start that type of an industry, and maybe the government is going to bring in the right people to do that, because we just can't have totally unskilled labor coming.
Interesting. Let's switch gears a little bit here and go to some of the human aspects. So what if there are people out there that say, you know, I didn't grow up with a certain amount of money, or I didn't grow up with a certain amount of advantages, or I didn't grow up in a good neighborhood. I can't do it because I can't, you know, I have this excuse or that excuse. You know, you actually 3 times, I believe, in your life had cataract surgery.
Cornea transplant.
Cornea transplant surgery. So
Right.
there were moments in probably time where you couldn't see, or you were in between seeing, having your eyes basically replaced 3 times over your lifetime. You could have just said, no, I can't because I don't have the eyesight, or I can't because I can't see, or whatnot. What do you say to people like that who have those kind of excuses?
Well, a lot of us put our dreams on hold, but you have to think of the future. And you know, the government itself, and even private organizations like the ones I work as a volunteer with, we only have so much resources to give, and at some point you have to take some responsibility for your life. I mean, no matter what obstacles were thrown in your way, if you happen to be one of those refugees who was born in gang-infested slum in El Salvador or Somalia, and you finally got out of there and got to America, and you don't have anything to start with, somebody has to take you and tell you, you know, you can't just live here for free. So, I mean, there's some point you have to motivate yourself and take pride and try to get ahead.